I moved 2 years ago at 23 from Germany to Nairobi in Kenya, and I have to tell you this was the best decision I made in my life so far. Life here in Kenya on the African continent is so much more peaceful. You have so many more opportunities. You can grow so much more than I could ever imagine by being in Germany or being in the States. And in today's video, I want to share with you why this could be the opportunity for you to do the same thing, to fulfill yourself, to make this move for yourself, and to find your true passions and to make a life-changing decision. So let me tell you what you don't know yet about Kenya and why this might change your mind to finally make the decision you're always thinking about. And if you haven't been thinking about it, now you can start considering it or at least visiting it. So to start off, let's start comparing Western countries' lifestyles and lives in general with the one in Kenya. I've been born and raised in Germany. As a half German and half Eritrean, I spent over 20 years of my life there. But I also stayed in the States for over a year and spent a couple of months in New York, spent a good 8 months in Orlando, went to Miami, to DC, to Seattle, because I also have a lot of family over there. So I think I got a good picture of how life in the States is from my personal experience, but also from the people I know that live over there. And now, since I've been living for 2 years here in Kenya up to today, I think now it's a good time to draw a comparison to see how things actually are and how things feel, how life feels. So one of the biggest things I would say for you, especially if you're from a Western country, is how far your money can go here actually. So if you compare the cost of living in Kenya and Nairobi, where I'm staying right now, with the other Western countries and the cities I've stayed in, I think your money goes much further than you know it. So my rent here is around $900, but I can share with my 2 roommates, and in the end of the day I pay approximately $300. But for this, we stay in one of the best neighborhoods here in Spring Valley. It's very close to Westlands, what is one of the most central and best locations here in Nairobi, because there's where you have everything, every single mall you need, every shopping center you need. There's every bar, every good restaurant. There's like a lot of things you can do in this area, but we're still living like, let's say 7 to 10 minutes away from it. We still have our peace. It's very quiet and green here outside. Just to say this, we stay in a very central and amazing location where our garden grows all different kinds of fruits like avocados, bananas, and many more things, and many different herbs. And we still have a very quiet location and are still close to the city center. And this for $900 for the whole 5-bedroom apartment. When I think of my time in New York, for instance, when I think of my time over in New York, just hearing about how much people pay there for rent, I was quite shocked, because they pay approximately $2,500, $3,000 for an apartment as big as our living room here right now in Nairobi. And then we have 5 more bedrooms and a big kitchen and a big garden and everything, what is unimaginable over there when I was there. And the same thing applied to Orlando. It might be a bit cheaper than New York, but still compared to the quality you get to Kenya, I think it's unbeatable. And the same applies to Germany. Most of the places you live in are either in a not as good location where you maybe don't want to stay, you can stay for cheaper there, or the more expensive locations are also very much overpriced compared to the living standards you have here in Kenya. So I think that's definitely a win for Kenya. And in this instance, also just going out to restaurants, just going out to do activities, to have a drink, to have a coffee outside, everything is much more affordable if you still earn the foreign currency, like the euro or like the US dollar or like the British pound. Everything here is more affordable for you than in the country where you stay in right now. At least it's what I realized, because I'm also still earning foreign currency, what makes life here a bit more affordable. And then just to add on to this, because I mentioned the restaurants and the activities and everything, I feel like here is so much more freedom to do certain activities and to go out for restaurants, because you can afford it first off, but because also the quality is so nice and you can actually enjoy. There's so many places here where you have live music, where you can just grab your beer, grab a wine, grab whatever you want to grab, and just enjoy a nice dinner, a nice lunch, whatever. And you don't have to break the bank for it, you know? So when I imagine the time in New York, I think you can easily spend at a night out $100, and it's just for like some drinks and 1 meal, let's say. But here in Nairobi, I think you can go for the same quality and maybe spend like $30 for it, so $30 US. So it's much cheaper for the same quality you get. So this is something what just draws you more outside to do certain things, to do more activities, to enjoy more eating out, and just to enjoy life a little bit more. So the freedom and peace of mind is much bigger, because you already like have to be less stressed about the money you spend, and you can just do certain things that you would have maybe thought of twice in the States or in Europe, in different countries. And I think, to just add one last thing to it, to have the ability to be less stressed about, let's say, making money or like spending your money here, you have the capability to think about more and more different things, maybe some certain things like business opportunities here on the continent. To live here in Kenya just gives you more peace of mind, because you have more opportunities in terms of lifestyle and freedom and your housing, compared to the States, where you have to make a lot of money to just be able to sustain yourself. Now, when we jump on to the next point, that's also one of the main reasons why I came here personally. It was the business opportunities. And there I have to say, since I've been here for the last 2 years, and I've been really actively going out and meeting people from all different industries, people who make a lot of money, people who are in international businesses, I see so many opportunities here that I have never thought of while I was in Germany or in the States. Maybe it was also because in this time I was a bit younger to actually maybe realize these things. But now I have to say, after staying here for 2 years, and most of the time I spend my time meeting new people who are also business owners, or like people who have quite high positions in any companies, just to also get to know what things I could do, just to build up my network, just to spend some quality time with like people I can learn something from. I have to say, the opportunities here on the continent are endless. I met people that are exporting avocados from Kenya to the biggest supermarket chains in European countries, in Spain, in Portugal. I met people who trade commodities from all over the world, and they have the base here in Kenya as well. And I've also met quite a few people who come from the outside and build their startups here. And the same I see with the local Kenyans. I see there's a big mentality for building startups, for building companies, because they see the opportunities the African continent offers, and also Kenya in this instance. For instance, I was working for a while with some guys, and they were building East Africa's first production for protein powder, so for protein supplements. And just to follow their journey, I was helping them a bit here and there with marketing and operations, and like improving processes and everything, just trying to build out the structure for the business, just to see that this is something that is so common in, like, let's say, so common in Germany, so common in the States. There's something you would never think of doing, because you have like 100 or 1,000 competitors in this industry. Here in Kenya, you can be the first person to produce something like this. This was just mind-blowing to see. And just to give you another example, I get requests now, since I've been living here, for people who want to touch into the Kenyan market, like from Turkey, from Germany, from Netherlands, from different countries, and the same applies the other way around. So I have many people from Kenya who are already doing business quite big in East Africa and Africa, or like with different international countries as well. But now they want to touch also base in more and more countries. So they come to me and ask me, hey, do you have any connections with any kind of German suppliers for this? Do you have someone in Germany who could buy these and these products from me? Just a small note here, it's just incredible as well what kind of people you can meet here. I think Kenya is the place, and Nairobi especially, is the place for international relations and international business. Because just coincidentally, I met like the founder of one of the most known coffee shop chains here in Kenya, or in Nairobi at least. And I was just having a simple and easy conversation with them, and now we are into some discussions, because I got some requests from German companies that want to import some coffee. So I think just by being here and spending your time here and being out there, showing your face, being open and engaging with people, you will understand how many different things you can actually do here. Because now I feel like I'm the connection in between Europe and Kenya, for instance, and the African continent in general, because now people are even reaching out from the States that I know. They're like, hey, I want to buy some property in Ghana. Do you have some connections over there? So it's somehow that you can build the bridge between the Western countries and the African countries, and make both sides win and yourself win. So it's quite interesting that you can just come here and soak up so much knowledge, meet so many interesting people, and you can end up somewhere very different than you expected to end up. Just if you look at different kind of business opportunities like agriculture, you could export or import different goods. You could also check out the tech scene, because Kenya is also called the Silicon Savannah, and a lot of startup and VC money is flowing into the Kenyan economy to fund startups, especially for mobile money payment solutions or different kinds of payment solutions. And there are more and more of them coming up and rising and like changing and revolutionizing the future of the African continent. But you also have the sector of real estate. Real estate is also quite booming at the moment. I see, at least there's so much development happening here in the country. I think Kenya is just a growing place for business opportunities, and compared to Europe, compared to the States, where every market is already very much saturated, you have many different opportunities here to start early on and to be one of the first ones and to actually build out something proper and meaningful, as long as you have the right mentality and you are ready to adapt to the different kind of challenges you will face here. So the next thing I think is very important for you guys, but it was also very important for me, was the kind of feeling I had when I first touched ground here, when I first started actually building my life here. And it was just the kind of feeling I've never had before. I arrived here, and I think a few days later I felt already like home, because people were welcoming me like I'm home. People were telling me welcome home. So they're very direct, they're very friendly, very open, and they even invited me to have dinner at their places. I would say this kind of feeling was something I've not been used to in Europe, in Germany, and I've not been used to in the States. People in the States are generally friendly as well, but like here I feel like it's much more genuine, that people are actually like, hey, this is your home. And even if I'm from a different country, even if I'm half German and half Eritrean, they say like, oh, Africa is your home. Just stay here with us, settle down, and everything will be good with you. So people here are generally much more open, more friendlier. And so this is why I think it's one of the best countries, at least where I've been so far, where you can build your life, and it's much, much easier to adapt than in other countries. When I went to Tanzania for the first time, I think it was much more chaotic, but I also haven't been to the biggest city over there in Dar es Salaam. I was just in Arusha, I was in Moshi, I was in Zanzibar. So maybe it's also because of this, because the culture is very much different. I can adapt quickly, but the culture is still very much different, like what you're used to from the States or what you're used to from Europe, from the Western countries. So I would say Nairobi and Kenya in general is one of the easiest places to start with your African journey. It's because it's quite developed, because it's just a welcoming and warm nature of the people is also making things very, very much easy for you. So I think in terms of the shocks you get, the culture shocks you get, it will be very, very much little. But also the thing is, for this to happen to you as well, you need to be just open-minded and be accepting that things are very different from the things you know already. And if you're ready for this can easily and quickly feel like your home. Just to give you a small story, I hosted my family like in August this year, so a couple of months back. And it was the first time in a long time that most of them were on the African continent, besides being born and raised there for most of them. And the way they felt after staying here with me for 2.5 weeks, I took them around Kenya, where we went to Mombasa. We did different kinds of activities that they get the best image of. And all of them felt so welcomed here and so comfortable here that they were likely to say like, hey, I want to stay here actually. But they had too many ties over there in Germany that they had to go back. But in the end of the day, they felt much more welcomed here in 2.5 weeks than spending the whole life in Germany. So this is something similar I see with many, many different other people I bring here. And I always love to host people and to show them the Kenyan warm mentality. And I always love to see that it's not just happening to me, it's also happening to the friends I bring here, and how well they feel here. I even brought like 2 of my friends. I told them, just come to Kenya, just come to Nairobi, look how life is for you here, and then you can decide where you want to stay. And they stayed here actually for a long time. So they even stay here up to today. So I think it's a good sign for you guys. And Kenya should be, or could be as well, the country where you start your African journey with, where you start exploring, and from here on you can see how you can blend into the culture and into the country and living on the African continent as well. So I'm also getting oftentimes the question about the connectivity and the infrastructure here, because oftentimes, and this is the same thing that applied to me when I haven't been to the African continent, and I still thought this way when I was in Uganda and didn't know how different countries looks like, is the question of the internet connectivity and the infrastructure. And for this, I have to say, first off, Kenya's infrastructure is one, I would say, very, very impressive, very great. They have very nicely built out roads, at least in Nairobi in almost every single street, besides like some smaller areas. And you also have very nicely built out streets all the way to Mombasa. You have built out street all the way to the other side, to Naivasha, and even further down to Nakuru, to Kisumu, to all these areas, at least the roads I've used so far. And in terms of this, I have to say Nairobi is quite developed. Of course, you cannot compare the infrastructure with the Western countries, at least with Germany or the States, where all the streets are perfectly built out and there are no potholes in the roads and everything. But I have to say, this is something that surprised me when I came here the first time, because when I went to Kampala, to Uganda, I saw the streets where the infrastructure was very different. They also had I think they have a train as well, but the Nairobi SGR is a newly built out train that started running a couple of years ago, that was built from the Chinese. They build out roads, they build a new express highway in the city that you just save a lot of time to drive all the way through the city to get to the airport and get to all the different parts of the city. But I've been also to South Africa, where it's also an amazing infrastructure. And I drove all the way to Namibia, where they also have amazing infrastructure. But I have to say, Nairobi is not lacking in terms of the infrastructure. Of course, you have potholes here and there, but otherwise, you have a great train system, you have great roads, so everything works perfectly. And then to get to the point of connectivity, what's also something that was very, very much important for me, that's also one of the smaller things why I made the decision to come to Kenya and to stay here in Nairobi, is that you actually have a very, very fast internet and even connection if you go hiking. I went once to the Mount Longonot. This is like a 2,800 meter high hill, if I'm not wrong, and I was still able on top to make a FaceTime call. So I think it works quite well, and even in the city center I always have quite fast internet, good connection. So I cannot complain about this, and even at home I have always like 40, 50, 60 Mbps. So always a quite strong infrastructure, and the same thing applies if I go outside, work in a cafe, if I go to any art cafe, if I go to any other restaurant. Most of the places they have strong connectivity, strong network, and so I cannot complain about this at all. So because I know most of you are wondering how this is, and if you are actually able to work online and remotely from here in Kenya, and this is definitely something that's very, very much possible. So then I have to say, one of the last things I want to talk about is the peace of mind and the freedom. I know in like some of the sections I already touched this topic, but I have to say this needs to be on its own as well, because peace of mind is, I think, one of the most important things. I made a video before where I was talking about New York versus Nairobi, and of course American cities, they have more things to offer, but I have to say, in terms of mental health and the way you feel living your life over there, is nothing compared to how you live here in Nairobi. As I said in the beginning, things are first off cheaper. To say you have like so much more to fuel your creativity here, what gives you also on the other hand more peace of mind. And for instance, when I was living in Germany, most of the time I was just focused on my work. I was working, and just focused on like doing more, learning more and stuff like this. But since I've been here, I'm still very, very much like focused and try to do my things and to explore new ventures and just go all into the things I want to do. But still, on the other hand, I have more space also to grow my creativity and to do things I've never done in my life before. I could also go more into the nature, I could hike more, I just can do different things that give me much more peace of mind. And this is something I realized while I've been living here and traveling here across the continent in Kenya. It is just as important to also give your mind some space to be a bit bored and to live your creativity than to focus also on your work. I felt like the time I used to fuel my creativity and the time I used to just be a little bit bored and spend my time differently than I would have in Germany gave me many, many more ideas and like helped me to think through many different things I want to do. And this is what actually brought me as well to be this focused. And of course, you still have your up and downs. At least I have my up and downs, of course, every now and then. It's completely normal. But in the end of the day, you can take a couple of days into the nature here, rethink the things you do, think about the strategies, think about what you want to do, and then afterwards you can come back and be focused again. So I think peace of mind is a big thing, especially in terms of mental health. If you look at the States, if you look at Europe, where everybody is struggling, I think this makes life also much more livable over here on the African continent, and in this case here in Kenya for myself. So all this was to say that I think Kenya is the hidden gem that we don't know enough about yet. I think making the decision to move to Kenya was the best decision I could have done, especially at my age back then at 23. Now 2 years later, I think this was actually the best decision I made in my life so far. just because of the development I saw, just because of the people I met, just because of the experiences I was able to gain here in this country. And I'm so thankful for this. Kenya is a place where you can feel truly at home. And this especially when you have some African roots, but also are looking for a different place to stay on the continent, or like looking to travel the first time to the African continent. I think Kenya is the very place you can feel welcome, especially if you come here for the first time. You will not regret it. You can really easily blend in, get yourself a picture of the continent, of Kenya and Nairobi, and maybe also the other cities that are around here, like Nakuru, Mombasa, wherever you want to travel to. And from there on, you can make your decision. From there on, you can see if you rather want to travel the next time to the African continent, to look at a different country, you come back to Kenya, you want to move to Kenya eventually. Because this is what happened to me after visiting Uganda like 2 times. I was like, I want to move to the African continent, and was then looking for a different place where I can feel comfortable. So you never know in life, but I think, and I hope this video helped you a little bit to get a better picture of the country, to get a better vision of how things are, especially now with the things going on in Europe, going on in the States, going on all over the world, where you see that the world is not in the best position at the moment. I really appreciate you, and if you are wanting to visit an African country, and which one it is. And because I know oftentimes what I heard is that many people have doubts. They're planning to move, but they're planning to visit an African country, but it takes them so much time to do this move, or to pay this visit. And I'm wondering why this is. I want you to write down what it is and drop it down below in the comments, and maybe we can help each other out and like start to change the narratives and start to visit our home country and home continent more often. Thank you so much for watching the video. Watch some of the other videos I placed right here about my move, about my journey, about life compared with other countries, and just the African development in general. Thank you so much for watching, and I see you in the next video.